So you're preparing for government, it would appear. Does that mean that David Lammy is going to go and see President Trump?
I haven't seen David's itinerary. I'm not sure if
Should he?
Well, I think, look, whoever's in the White House, we need to work with America.
But you need to work with them beforehand, don't you? And Lord Cameron has gone overnight to see Donald Trump. Is it not prudent for David Lammy to do the same?
Well, I know David's been to America quite a bit. He's got colleagues on both sides of the aisle there, sort of Republicans as well as Democrats. He's built those bridges because I think he recognises that we need to have that alliance. I don't know his diary, so I can't give you breaking news.
Question.
Well, if President Trump gets re-elected, that's up to David to work out his itinerary.
What do you think he should do?
I'm not going to step on his toes because I'm here to talk about tax. I don't want to step on David's toes.
You're here to represent Labour this morning.
I am representing Labour this morning,
yeah,
but David's itinerary...
Should the Labour Shadow Foreign Secretary go to see President Trump just in case he finds himself in the White House, as this present government has done?
Well, look, I'm sure David will work out his David Lammy, that is, will work out his itinerary about who he meets. But, if we get into government, if President Trump is re-elected in the elections in America, we need to have that relationship with the US, whoever's in the White House.
Culture of sexism at the union, the GMB union. Why are you taking money off them?
Well, look, any allegations or cases of sexism are of the highest importance, and wherever that occurs, whether it's in the GMB or elsewhere, it needs to be fully investigated. Action needs to be taken. We need to stamp out any culture of sexism. The relationship between the Labour Party and the GMB, as with other unions, is an incredibly long-standing, vital relationship in our party, and that's a relationship which is really important to what we do.
No, but if there's a culture of sexism and bullying at GMB, why are you taking around £2 million a year off them?
Well, the relationship between GMB and the Labour Party is a long-established relationship.
Will you stop taking money off them if it's proven?
Well, I don't know the details of those allegations that are made today, but the relationship...
Sexism, harassment and bullying is rife in the workplace. They claim the organisation failed to act on a report that called it institutionally sexist. We did our own investigation, pattern of abuse, as well as a former employee who says she felt pressured into dropping her sexual harassment complaint by the organisation's General Secretary. And you take £2 million a year off that union.
Well, look, what you've just read out there is obviously incredibly serious, and we need to make sure, that the GMB is investigating those complaints and responding to it and looking at their processes.
If they're found to have been doing that, then you'll stop taking money off them.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge what happens when they look into those processes, but they are very important, and those allegations are incredibly serious.
You were very quick to tell the government to return money from donor Frank Hester.
Well, that's a separate situation we're talking about there.
Except it's the same.
Well, it's one where the Prime Minister, in the case of Frank Hester, was under real pressure to just call him... Well, just to call it out for what it was. Somebody who was discredited,
and as a result, you said, give the money back.
Well, it wasn't just discredited. It was that his comments, were out and out racist. And actually, I think as a result,
he was discredited. That's the right word.
As well as being racist, he called for violence, in what he said. So they were really serious allegations. They were really serious comments that he made, and he wasn't denying it. She felt pressured into
dropping her sexual harassment complaint.
As I say, those are really serious allegations and they need to be investigated fully.
Yeah, but you're still taking £2 million while those investigations are continuing?
Well, those investigations need to happen, and we need to know what's going on there, and we need to make sure I'm sure the GMB will be very keen to make sure there's a plan in place to do whatever's necessary to get rid of sexism from their organisation.
Yesterday, your colleague, when I asked her about whether Labour would publish legal advice as to whether or not Israel should be receiving arms from the UK, whether they were in breach of international law. She says, I don't see why we wouldn't issue that advice that had been given to the government if it was a Labour government. Is that your view?
Well, yes, if we were in government today, I'm sure we would publish that advice because we're calling on the government to do so. There are reasons why legal advice in many cases is private, but this is exceptional circumstances. There's a real public interest in this advice being public, and we think this advice should be made public.
Interesting. Talk to me about what happened at Labour HQ yesterday. Red paint everywhere.
I actually didn't see reports of that. I heard someone mention it, but I don't know the details of it.
OK, well, there's a fantastic picture that one of the photographers took with a police officer. I think we've got it, so we can show it to you. These are the officers at the scene. But there was red paint splashed everywhere. It was in relation to a protest because they feel that Labour and the government, your stance on Israel is not satisfactory. You can see the paint. What do you think?
Well, look, we don't support, obviously, damage to property. I think there is a legitimate right to protest, but there has to be a line, and we need to make sure that protests don't cross that line. And,
Can you understand the frustration?
Well, I know that people feel strongly about it. I don't think that ever justifies having damage to physical property. And I think, for instance, where people are protesting outside MPs' houses, that is going too far. But, you know, if I take myself away from the specifics of that case at Labour Party headquarters and talk about the general situation, you know, I know how deeply upset, angry people feel about the situation, you know, in Gaza, and how much people, you know, want the violence to stop, want the war to end, want there to be an immediate ceasefire, as we've been calling for.
And indeed, hostages to be returned to their loved ones who've been waiting more than 6 months.
Well, exactly. We need to make sure that we have an immediate ceasefire, the immediate release of hostages, you know, and get the aid into Gaza, because that's what's so desperately needed.
OK, it's always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Much